How's it going, guys? Backyard Bassin back with you today.
Today we are going to talk a little bit about worm fishing and being summer, dog days of summer at that. So I'm going to tell you that if I'm throwing a worm, probably 80% of the time it's going to be on a Texas rig. I have a lot of confidence in that. I fish it a lot. Um, Never had any problems with it. I like the feel of it. Um, Usually when I'm fishing out deeper water, and when I say deeper water, around my area in the Midwest here, deeper water is going to consist anywhere from about, I'm going to say on a good range, probably 20 to 40 foot. That's the deep range. I mean, yeah, there's a few places that are deeper than that, but not too often around here. But when I'm fishing those deeper spots like that, I'm usually throwing up usually about a half ounce weight. Um, Now, when I'm Texas rigging, I know I've had videos in the past showing about pegging weights and this and that. When I am dragging a worm, a big worm like that for summer bass fishing out deep, I tend not to use a pegged weight. Um, Reason being, fish out deep like that, when they pick that up, they can run off a long way and they'll never feel that weight. So they just think it's another rock laying there. They don't pay attention to it much or whatever. Now I've had fish come up and pick it up, and what I believe that happens is they pick that up and they feel that weight and that little bit of that pull on there, and they kind of drop it right there. So I've had a little bit better experience with not pegging it. Like I said though, I go back to a half ounce weight is usually what I start with. If I'm fishing like, let's just say Kentucky, like it's got a little bit of current, something like that, I may go a little bit bigger than that just to keep in contact with the bottom. I want to feel everything down there. So I might go up to a 3/4 ounce at that point, or even a 1 ounce if I'm throwing, let's say like a man's jelly worm, a 12-inch worm. It's a pretty big worm, or a 7-inch Cinco. That's a big worm there. It's a big round worm. It's got a lot of girth to it, so I want to get as much feeling as I can on that. But as far as fishing out deep like that, if I'm having troubles getting bid on something like that on a Texas rig or whatever, I will also go to like a shaky head, even up to the 3/4 or 1 ounce shaky head. Anything to make that worm presentation a little bit different, uh, make that tail stick up, makes a big difference. If it even a 3/4 ounce wobble head is another good one to throw out on rocky points and stuff like that in that deeper water. Like I said, the main concern here is you want to stay in contact with that bottom. You need to be fishing around rocks. Um, that is the main thing. Don't go out there throwing, in mud or dirt or whatever you want to call it. You're probably not going to get bit. That's not where the fish are going to be hanging out. So try to find a rocky point or a gravel bar or something like that that's submerged deeper. Um, just anything in the deeper water, it's got hard. You want a hard bottom down there. That's the main thing to look for. Um, but back to different techniques there. Like I said, the wobble head, is a real good one to use. Um, I'm not personally a big drop shot guy, but that's another good place to throw a drop shot. Um, and I know a lot of guys are going to throw a drop shot. They're going to be on a spinning setup. One thing to keep you from losing that sensitivity, because you're not going to be throwing a 1 ounce weight or a 3/4 ounce weight on that spinning rod. So one thing that I do on my spinning rods is I throw straight braid down to about a 2 foot fluorocarbon leader, um, or a 3 foot, depending on if I'm actually going to do a drop shot or not. But the reason being for the braid is you're going to have all that sensitivity of that braid. That braid is very, very sensitive. And a lot of times when I'm using a shaky head, that's the whole reason I use that, is because there's so much sensitivity there in your rod and your line and everything, that even a cheaper rod, you're still going to feel a lot of it because of that braided line. So that's why I do that. I will tell you from day one, as far as spinning rods go, I don't spend a whole lot of money on them. But I fish fluorocarbon, or braid on them because of the sensitivity. I feel a lot more of it. So that's a big reason why I do that. Backing up here a little bit, you know, when I'm out looking on lakes for deeper summer bass, you know, I'm sure everybody's heard, you know, you want to look for the gravel points, the big main lake points. But one thing that does get overlooked, and I see there's a couple lakes around here that I fish that you want to look for humps. Humps out in the middle, humps going into coves, into bays. You know, that's something where fish really attract to. I do very well with them, and I don't see a lot of guys that do it. I mean, every once in a while, don't get me wrong, I do see some people on there fishing them. I don't know if it's people that have seen me do it or that actually know what they're doing and go over there and do it themselves. But that's one thing, you know, in the fall and in the winter that I like to do is I actually go over and I will take my boat over these lakes and kind of map what I want, you know, and see where different things are. You know, I find a lot of things in the fall just cruising around over there, you know, with a cup of coffee in my hand. So, you know, it's a real good idea to do. As far as bank fishing, guys, if you got a lake to go to that's got rock in it, that's great. If you're trying to fish a pond, I will tell you that's rough. You don't want to drag anything across the bottom. All you're going to do is stir mud up, make it harder for fish to see it and find it. I would say your best bet there is to probably to do like a drop shot. Set it up probably about 2 foot off the bottom, and if you can at all possible, try to get up higher to where you're keeping your bait up higher in that water column and away from that dirt that you're disturbing with that little bit of weight on the bottom there. You know, that'll help you get bites. But if you're just stirring up mud on the bottom, it's going to be a problem all day, I can tell you. You're going to have a rough time catching fish. Now, if you get around rock or anything like that around a pond, you know, more power to it. You know, go there. But I know a lot of ponds around here and other places don't have a whole lot of rock in them, so that's something there you want to think about. You know, if you got a lake to go to in the summer, that's probably where you want to go. Something that's got rock or some type of hard bottom to it. And another thing is, I know once you get out, not so much around here, we don't have real steep mountains or nothing like that, but there's a few places that have pretty steep boat ramps. Boat ramps are great for bass, especially at the ends of them. A lot of times there's a lot of gravel at the end of them, or there's a lot of chunk rock at the end of them, something like that, or busted up concrete where they poured or something like that. That's a great place for bass to hang out in a little bit deeper water. If you've got a lake that's, you know, let's say on an average anywhere from 8 to 10 foot deep, a boat ramp is typically going to run down about 4 or 5 foot. At the end of it, you know, you're going to get about 4 or 5 foot, maybe a little bit more depending on how steep the bank is there. So keep in mind, you know, when I say deep fishing for bass, you know, in the summer, yeah, they run deeper, but the thing is your lake might only be 8 to 10 foot deep. So if you get into 8 foot of water, that's pretty deep on that lake or that pond or whatever. So that's probably where they're going to be. So don't think you've always got to go out and go to this big deep water reservoir and stuff like that. I mean, it's whatever is deep in your lake or pond, you know, that's where you want to go. So it's all different depending on where you're at. As far as a rod setup, we'll go back to the Texas rig here. I've got a couple different rods I use. I don't use an extra heavy or nothing like that, even with throwing that 3/4 at 1 ounce weight. I typically go with about a 7 foot or a 7'6", nothing bigger, with just a regular heavy, fast action tip. I will show you this rod here. I picked this up actually by accident a couple years ago, and this is really an inexpensive rod. I think I paid like $60 for it, really. Like I said, I picked it up by accident. I was looking for just a cheap frog rod. I broke mine. Went to I think it was a Walmart actually, if I believe so. But it's called the Insight Pro Advantage. I haven't seen much on these, but this is their regular. It's a spinnerbait or worm rod. This thing is extremely light and well balanced. It's a 7 foot rod. But this thing, I've got it paired up. This is just a regular, it's a cheap loose speed spool, maybe $60-70 for that thing. But I can cast this thing, you know, a mile, no problem at all. but the sensitivity on this thing is unbelievable. I feel everything on this just with the tip. It is a fast action tip, but for whatever reason, this rod is just, it's one of those diamonds in the rough. I mean, I happened to get it by accident. I picked it up, started fishing with it, and absolutely love this rod. So make sure when you're doing that and you're going out fishing these deeper waters, get a pretty sensitive rod if you can afford it. If not, go feel around at a Walmart or something like that, or a cheap tackle store that's near you. And you don't have to go spend $200-300 on a rod. Go to the cheaper section, start feeling them. Feel one, get one that's real good and light. Don't go get the cheapest thing on the rack though. Look for something that's made for worm fishing. Ask a guy around there that works there. I'm sure he can tell you pretty easy. But just don't go spending a bunch of money right off the bat, especially if you're beginning. It's just not worth it. I mean, you're going to spend a bunch of money. You really aren't going to know what you have. And you'll probably end up tearing it up before you even get through it. And figure out how to work everything. So just save your money for a little bit. Wait till you get used to doing what you're wanting to do and how you're wanting to fish. Once you get that and you start feeling what you're feeling for, you'll know what rod you're going to go for next time, because you're going to know what you're wanting to feel. If that tip on the rod that you have is too stiff, that you're not feeling a lot of that stuff, or if it's too soft and you can't get a good hook set, you're going to go for a better rod tip. If you're pulling back and your whole rod's bending over and bowing, and it's just too much for it, next time you're going to get something with a little bit stronger backbone. Spend a little bit more money then. Like I said, right off the bat, it kills me when I see guys go out, that start out fishing and they want to go buy, a $300 rod or $200 rod even. It's nuts. I mean, I don't know how guys can afford doing that and just keep going through them, but, don't get me wrong, I work for a living and I have a lot of fishing stuff, but I don't go spending bukus of money on that stuff, until I know what I'm wanting. So, I started off with cheaper stuff too, and I'm glad I did. If I would have started off with that expensive stuff, I tell you what, my wife would probably divorce me over it. So, but anyway, that's about all I got for you guys tonight. Tune in for Thursday night's video. We're going to do something a little bit different that night, so make sure you guys stay tuned. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that like button, and we'll see you guys again next time. Thanks.